Hello, I'm Bella, and I'm 31 years old. I currently stay at home managing our household duties. My husband, Jerry, who is 4 years my senior, and I have been living with his parents, Henry and Marilyn, for the past 3 years. Both in their 60s, Henry and Marilyn are vigorous and healthy. Marilyn, Jerry's mother, is particularly sociable and enjoys an active social life. Since moving in, I've noticed that Marilyn rarely participates in household chores, despite not having a job outside the home. Previously, she was a stay-at-home mom, but now she largely leaves the domestic responsibilities to me. Occasionally, Marilyn encourages me to take some time for myself, yet she criticizes me if everything isn't perfect upon her return. I've tried to discuss this with her, explaining that I might not be able to complete all tasks before she leaves, but she dismisses my concerns. She often remarks that handling numerous chores is normal and criticizes my generation for not managing as well as hers did. Moreover, Marilyn frequently praises Jerry, especially proud of his job at a prominent company, and often points out that while Jerry works hard, she feels I do not measure up. This comparison has become her go-to comment. Jerry's reaction doesn't help. During meals when Marilyn complains about my efforts, he merely responds with an indifferent, "Oh, really?" which shows little support. Initially, I admired Jerry for his maturity given his age, but now I often feel relegated to the role of a housekeeper, even when I work tirelessly into the night. The situation has become increasingly challenging, and I wish Jerry would stand up for me more, as it seems he does not see the extent of my contribution to our home. He doesn't confront me directly. Instead, he tosses laundry at me, aiming for my face, and curtly tells me to handle that too. I regret marrying him because he's changed so much since our wedding. On our first anniversary, he brought home a cake, but then playfully smashed a pie in my face and laughed about it. It's hard to believe he's an adult. However, there is one silver lining in my life: my father-in-law, Henry. He's incredibly serene and always checks to see if I need help with anything. He's the sole source of kindness I experience in this household. Since leaving my job to get married, Henry has become someone I can confide in. My affection for him has grown, and I've come to see him almost as a real father. However, Henry works during the day, which means I often spend a lot of time alone with Marilyn. While I can speak freely with Henry, Marilyn's demeanor towards me sours. She even began accusing me of flirting with my father-in-law simply because Jerry neglects me. She would hurl these accusations when Henry was out of earshot. I tried to deny it, but she dismissed my words, mockingly asking if she had touched a nerve, always ready with a biting retort. Our conversations never seemed to go anywhere. I brought up these issues with Jerry, hoping he might understand it was just Marilyn's unfounded suspicions, but he just laughed it off, joking that I was now interested in older men too. It was painfully clear that nothing would change. I never expected him to start doing chores or to stop Marilyn's mockery, but I also never imagined he would react like this. It was a significant shock, leaving me feeling increasingly out of place in their home. One summer day, Marilyn began discussing plans for a family trip during Jerry's summer break. Initially, I thought Marilyn's suggestion for a family trip was just her usual enthusiasm for outings, but then she caught me off guard by asking if I wanted to join. I hadn't expected an invitation and thought they might leave without me. When I hesitated, Marilyn's expression turned suspicious, and she questioned whether I wanted to go or not. Her sudden invitation made me uneasy. I couldn't figure out her motive, and I was worried about how she might react if I declined. That evening, Jerry brought up the trip again, seeming curious about whether I planned to attend. I mentioned I was invited, and his reaction took me by surprise. He burst out laughing. Confused and feeling more uncomfortable, I asked him why he found it funny, but he dismissed my question, claiming it was nothing. On the day of the trip, it was Jerry, Marilyn, and me in the car, with Jerry driving and Marilyn next to him while I sat in the back. Henry was unable to join us initially due to work commitments, As we drove, not being able to see their faces added to my anxiety. Midway, Marilyn inquired if I had withdrawn money for the trip, to which I confirmed I had taken out a few $100s. Her pleased reaction seemed peculiar to me. As we continued driving, I noticed we had bypassed the inn where we were supposed to stay. "Did we just pass the inn?" I asked. Jerry responded vaguely, mentioning there was a tourist spot ahead and that we'd check in after visiting it. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and I felt a sense of foreboding. The further we drove, the scenery became lusher and more isolated. I quietly sighed, ensuring neither Marilyn nor Jerry heard my concern. Eventually, we arrived at a small, secluded dam with hardly any people around. Marilyn suggested we get out and stretch our legs, while Jerry added a reminder to not leave anything valuable in the car. I followed their instructions, stepping out into the unfamiliar surroundings, still trying to make sense of the day's unexpected developments. As I stepped out of the car and shut the door, I noticed Marilyn and Jerry hesitating, pretending to fiddle with something inside the car. Then I heard the click of the locks engaging, the windows were left only slightly open, and suddenly Jerry burst out laughing. Puzzled, I asked, "What's going on? Are we staying here for the night?" I felt a surge of anger toward Marilyn, but I managed to keep my composure. "What do you mean?" I asked, striving to maintain my cool. "You walked right into that one, didn't you?" Jerry replied, laughing so hard he had to clutch his stomach. My wallet and cell phone were still in the car. Everything had unfolded just as Marilyn and Jerry had planned. "Have fun out here, Bella," Marilyn sneered mockingly. "Maybe you can eat some grass and sleep under the stars." Jerry, still holding my wallet, riffled through it, then rolled up the window. Their laughter faded as they drove off, leaving me stranded. Standing alone, feeling the heat, I muttered to myself, "Well, this is just great." Despite the sweltering heat and the risk of dehydration, I surprisingly didn't panic. About an hour later, I found myself in the lobby of the inn where we were originally supposed to stay. "Why are you here?" Jerry exclaimed, shocked to see me as he entered the lobby. "Are you a ghost? Did something happen at the dam?" He looked utterly bewildered. Marilyn, who looked like she was on the verge of fainting, eyed me nervously. I considered playing along and pretending to be a ghost just to tease them, but decided against it. "I'm not a ghost and I'm staying here tonight," I told them, showing them the key to my room where I had already dropped off my luggage. Jerry couldn't make sense of the situation and started to get agitated. He thought I had taken the key to their room without permission. "What are you doing? Give it back," he demanded, reaching for the key aggressively. However, I was prepared for their antics this time, and I stood my ground, ready to confront whatever came next. Just then, a man stepped forward and firmly grasped my husband's hand. "Sir, please refrain from causing a disturbance here," he said with authority. He was about the same age as Henry, but with a stronger build and taller stature, which made him appear more commanding than my middle-aged, slightly overweight husband. "Who are you? Are you staff here? You can't just interfere with a guest like this. I'll sue you for assault," Marilyn shouted at the man who intervened. "I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I am the owner of this inn," the man replied calmly. Upon hearing this, my husband quickly released my hand. I recognized the owner. Back in my college days, I had visited this area with friends during a summer break. It was an extremely hot day, and we got lost on our way to our accommodation. During our ordeal, we stumbled upon a girl who collapsed on the side of the road, Kelly, the owner's daughter. We immediately called for an ambulance and stayed with her until help arrived. The next day, the owner visited us at the inn where we were staying and thanked us profusely. "You saved my daughter's life. Thank you so much," he had said. He also extended an invitation. "Next time you're in the area, please stay with us. You won't have to pay." Since then, my family and I have visited the inn several times, so I knew the owner quite well. As he addressed my husband and Marilyn, he remained polite, yet I could sense the undercurrent of anger in his demeanor. In fact, both the owner and I were aware of Marilyn and my husband's scheme from the beginning. 3 weeks ago, Feeling suspicious about their sudden invitation for a trip, I decided to set up a voice recorder in the living room. I strategically placed it to capture conversations when my husband and Marilyn thought they were alone, like when I was taking a bath or doing laundry. When I stumbled upon their plan, it was utterly shocking. I heard my husband and Marilyn plotting over a recorded conversation. "Let's ditch Bella somewhere. It would be hilarious. How about near that gym, an hour's drive from the inn?" Realizing the gravity of their scheme, I immediately contacted the owner of the inn to inform him about what was unfolding. The owner was livid upon hearing this. Having once experienced his daughter collapsing in the heat, he felt a personal connection to my predicament and was even more perturbed by their callousness. With the situation clear to him, he meticulously arranged my pickup for today, just after my husband and Marilyn's car departed. Interestingly, the driver of the inn shuttle turned out to be Kelly, the very girl we had helped years ago. "I got my license, let's go for a drive," she exclaimed with excitement. Despite my initial surprise, I agreed, and we chatted happily, even stopping to buy some local specialty ice cream on the way back to the inn. Even though I knew about the plan and that a pickup was coming, I was still worried. But Kelly, knowing the area exceptionally well, expertly navigated, and we arrived at the inn significantly before my husband and Marilyn. "You mentioned suing earlier, ma'am," the inn owner said, addressing Marilyn with a stern look. "Yes, I did. It's outrageous to be accused of the opposite," Marilyn snapped back defiantly. "I'm sorry, but you're not our guests," the owner responded firmly. "What? Don't mess with us." My husband and Marilyn both lost their tempers simultaneously. "Your reservations have been canceled," the owner stated plainly. "And who do you think you are?" My husband blustered, on the verge of another outburst, but the owner held him back. "Bella did nothing wrong. We at the inn canceled your reservations," the owner explained calmly. "What do you mean?" my husband demanded. "If you leave a woman alone at a dam in the mountains after stealing her wallet, wouldn't you be committing a crime?" The owner posed rhetorically, emphasizing the gravity of their actions. "We cannot permit such behavior at our inn," the owner declared, and he revealed that he had already called the police. My husband and Marilyn became even more incensed at this revelation. "This is no joke. You can't treat us this way. I work for a respected company," my husband protested, as if his job should afford him special treatment at this quaint mountain inn. Just then, Henry arrived, immediately sensing the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, surveying the scene. Marilyn and my husband quickly tried to spin the story, accusing the inn staff of rudeness and claiming they wanted to stay elsewhere. However, when Henry was briefed on the actual events, he became enraged, a side of him I'd never seen before. "You idiots!" he yelled, clearly embarrassed. "I can't believe we're from the same family. You two get out of here now!" My husband and mother-in-law were stunned by Henry's outburst. "Where to? Another inn?" they asked, bewildered. But Henry was resolute. "You're disowned. Get out." "No, don't make me say it again," he commanded, pushing my husband away. As the police arrived, my husband and Marilyn's complexions turned ashen. The owner and I explained the entire scenario to the officer, and I played back the recorded conversation. My husband and Marilyn began to cry, but Henry interjected sharply. "Quiet down, you're disturbing the inn. Officer, please take them away." "It's not like that, officer. We didn't think it would be such a big deal. It was just a prank," my husband tried to explain. But the officer's expression hardened. "A prank? Are you serious? Don't you realize that your little joke could have put someone's life at risk, especially your own wife's?" They were scolded harshly, though they weren't arrested due to the familial nature of the matter. Marilyn and my husband looked pale throughout the ordeal. "This isn't over. Bella's feelings will determine your future. Understand?" With those final words, they left, still visibly shaken. Henry, who seemed apologetic for not intervening sooner, stayed behind to ensure everything was settled. Henry repeatedly expressed his remorse. "I'm sorry. I can't apologize enough for not noticing the unpleasant experiences you have been having and the terrible ordeal you went through today." He also extended a deep apology to the inn owner for the trouble caused by his family's actions. Interestingly, it turned out that the inn owner, who also runs several other businesses, is a client of the company where Henry works. Unaware of this connection, my husband had earlier boasted about his position at a prominent company, adding another layer of embarrassment to the situation. I was relieved that I had uncovered my husband and Marilyn's plan in time, but it was also a sobering reminder of what might have happened if I hadn't been vigilant. I hoped that being reprimanded by the police would help them realize the gravity of their actions. After returning from the inn, I decided to divorce my husband and sought a significant settlement, hoping this experience would be a lesson for them to refrain from hurting anyone else. In a surprising twist, Henry and Marilyn also ended up divorcing. Henry severed all ties with my ex-husband, kicking him out of the house because of the incident. Furthermore, my ex-husband was advised to resign from his job, as his behavior at work had also been problematic for some time. Just as he had mistreated me, he had been harsh with his colleagues and engineers, and the HR department had already been contemplating action against him. Reflecting on my actions, I was disappointed that I had, to some extent, mirrored such negative behavior. Now unemployed, my ex-husband struggled to find another job. Despite his age, he lacked a solid track record for managerial positions at his previous company and found it difficult to explain his departure. Marilyn, too, was kicked out by Henry and sought refuge with relatives, returning to her parents' home. These developments marked a significant turn of events, highlighting the consequences of their actions and the importance of integrity in both personal and professional life. Concerns linger about Marilyn's penchant for spending and traveling. Her relatives worry she might deplete their savings if she were to move in with them. Given that she's still in good health, it might be prudent for her to consider securing a part-time job to support herself and mitigate such concerns. Meanwhile, I've moved out of my in-laws' house and now live independently nearby. I maintain a friendship with Henry and occasionally seek his advice on work-related issues. This marks a new chapter in my life, a shift from my previous role managing household duties and caring for children to embracing new professional opportunities. During my job search, the owner of a company reached out to me. Aware of my recent challenges, he expressed concern and offered me a position at his firm. It seemed he was eager to help me find a stable footing within his organization. I accepted his offer with gratitude, touched by his kindness. In our conversations, he insisted that his company was the one grateful to have me. It felt like a full-circle moment, repaying a past favor, and now it was my turn to contribute positively. The company he introduced me to is well known and highly regarded for its treatment of employees, a pleasant surprise indeed. Interestingly, this company operates in the same industry that my ex-husband used to boast about, yet it's significantly larger. Everyone at my new workplace is friendly, making my daily experiences far more enjoyable than the times marred by marital strife. This new beginning has been invigorating, allowing me to leave behind the past and look forward to a promising future.
I'm Hannah, a 36-year-old woman with an extraordinary tale to share. The narrative revolves around my estranged ex-husband. Even though we are technically still married, I consider him as my ex due to the distressing events that transpired 3 years ago, affecting both me and our daughter, Peyton. Back then, when Peyton was just 12, we faced severe financial struggles attributed to my husband's reckless squandering of our money. The situation created intense tension within our household, as relying on a single salary proved insufficient. Despite my efforts to shield Peyton from the harsh reality, she, even at her young age, sensed the disharmony and began harboring resentment towards her father for his extravagant spending habits. The breaking point came on a cold and rainy afternoon, April 12th, 3 years ago, when he left. While he had left us alone for extended periods before, this time it felt permanent. A year passed without any sign of his return, solidifying our conviction that he was gone for good. In the aftermath of his departure, both Peyton and I developed a profound disdain for him. Peyton expressed her feelings, stating, "I hate Dad for everything he's done to us." I reassured her, saying, "I understand how you feel, sweetheart. I feel the same way. But we're going to get through this together, I promise. I'll make sure you never have to worry about anything." True to my promise, I worked diligently to ensure that Peyton never lacked anything. I resigned from my job and delved into the realms of affiliate marketing and content writing. It took approximately a year to establish a livelihood I could take pride in. During this time, I achieved the milestone of becoming a homeowner and acquired a luxurious car for both Peyton and myself. Our prosperity was evident, and I was pleased that my strong work ethic influenced Peyton, prompting her to embark on a career in online content creation. Peyton successfully garnered a substantial following of 110,000 on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, evolving into a rising star. Turning one's lifestyle into a source of income is a rewarding endeavor in today's age, and I am immensely proud of her achievements. Unfortunately, the upward trajectory in our lives took a downturn when we experienced the loss of Moses, my ex-father-in-law, and Peyton's grandpa. Despite Shepard, my ex-husband, leaving us years ago, we maintained a connection with his parents. They were good-hearted people who supported us during both financial hardships and emotional challenges. Moses, however, was profoundly affected by Shepard's actions. While the rest of us had given up hope, Moses clung to the belief that Shepard would one day return with an explanation that could alter our perspective on his actions. As unrealistic as it may sound, Moses's love and optimism could not accept anything less. Regrettably, Moses never had the chance to witness whether his hope would be justified, as he passed away. Although he lived a long and fulfilling life, the absence of communication from his son likely contributed to his demise. Peyton and I attended the funeral, where we encountered Nora, Peyton's grandma, and my ex-mother-in-law. Overwhelmed by grief, we embraced tightly. Amidst the somber event, something utterly astonishing occurred, too shocking to fathom. The cemetery's ambience, coupled with pallid and distressed faces, may have played tricks on my mind, for I could have sworn I witnessed a ghost in the distance. I saw the ghost of a man who had been absent from my life for 3 years. This spectral figure resembled my husband, though I grappled with the ambiguity of whether it was a fortunate or unfortunate encounter. It wasn't a supernatural apparition. Rather, it was my actual husband, yet he bore an uncanny resemblance to a ghost. His unnaturally slim appearance suggested a drained vitality, as if all the life force had been siphoned from him. I attributed this frailty to the distressing news of his father's demise, assuming that such harrowing information would naturally take a toll on anyone's well-being. As he approached the funeral, a collective shock swept through the gathering. Peyton, our daughter, erupted in screams, shouting, "How dare you show up here, Dad, after everything you've done to us? You left us. You abandoned us for 3 years. His mother sobbed even harder, crying out, "Shepard, how could you do this to our family?" Overwhelmed by the chaos and raw emotions unfolding around me, I stood frozen, unable to move as the weight of it all bore down on me. Observing the tumultuous scene, I recognized that his presence was not welcomed. Despite my deep-seated resentment and hatred towards him, I couldn't deny the fact that he had lost his father and deserved the chance to bid him a final farewell. I spoke softly, "Everyone, please, let's give him a moment. No matter what he's done, he's still Moses' son. He deserves to say goodbye." Expressing this sentiment to the others, we agreed, at least momentarily, to set aside our grievances and maintain a semblance of civility in honor of the departed Moses. The funeral continued, and we reconvened at my home. Even Shepard, my estranged husband, joined us and remarked, "This place, it's beautiful. You've done well for yourself, Hannah." I quickly cut through the facade, replying, "Don't flatter me, Shepard. You can't just walk in here and act like nothing happened. If you want to stay, you need to explain yourself. Start with why you look like a ghost." I paused, my voice sharp and unyielding. "No, scratch that. What exactly are you doing here?" Shepard's face hardened as he responded, "I came to pay my respects. He was my father after all. But there's another reason I'm here. I'm here to claim what's rightfully mine." At this, Peyton lunged forward, shouting, "Are you serious right now? You think you can just waltz in and take what's not yours?" I grabbed her arm to restrain her, whispering, "Calm down, Peyton. Let's not cause a scene here." The room fell silent as whispers circulated, heads turned, and a brewing conflict loomed. Fortunately, Nora skillfully managed the crowd as I directed Shepard and Peyton to a more secluded area of the house. "I never intended to harm you, my dear," Shepard continued, his voice trembling with a mix of regret. Peyton's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't use that term. I mean nothing to you. You forfeited any claim when you abandoned us without explanation. What kind of father does that? I've tried to forgive, but it's impossible," she lamented. Shepard sighed heavily. "Look, Peyton, Hannah, I regret everything. I'm in dire need of money. I'm facing some issues." My daughter crossed her arms, her tone sharp. "Do you think we're concerned about you and your troubles? It seems you've fallen in with the wrong crowd. Are you involved in drugs?" Shepard hesitated, the color draining from his face, confirming Peyton's suspicions. "Shepard?" I pressed, my voice full of concern. At that instant, Nora joined us. "Now that I've resolved things, Shepard, could you please clarify what happened? Your father waited patiently, clinging to the hope that you'd return with an explanation to dispel our doubts. Give me some good news. Give me something to believe in." Shepard shifted uncomfortably. "I came here to claim my inheritance, Mom." Peyton scoffed. "He's hooked on drugs, Grandma. He came for his inheritance to finance his habit." Shepard's voice rose in protest. "No, it's not like that at all. You were right about me associating with the wrong crowd. Let's just say I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now I owe some people money," he exclaimed. Nora frowned. "How much are we talking about?" Shepard looked down, muttering, $75,000. "What have you done?" Peyton exclaimed. "Well, that's just great. While Mom and I were struggling to stay warm and fed, you were entangled with shady individuals. We won't assist you in that. You've made your choices, and now you must face the consequences," she concluded. Nora's voice softened. "Darling, I understand you're distressed, but can we discuss whether you're attempting to support him at this moment? He walked away from us, left all of us behind." Peyton's voice was cold. "I understand, Grandma. It's not easy to accept, but he didn't just leave you. He left me, Mom, and Grandpa. He broke our hearts, and that's not something you can forgive easily." She shot Shepard a sharp look. "Though it seems he might finally understand what he's done," she concluded. Nora's gaze lingered on Shepard. "Looking at him, it's unbelievable how I defended him so fervently back then, not realizing that my actions may have contributed to his eventual choices." After the funeral, Shepard stayed in a motel, and Nora, mainly Nora and I, would visit him, offering assistance. Peyton adamantly refused to see him again. Our primary goal was to settle his inheritance so he could move on. Peyton and I decided to distance ourselves from him, but Nora, being his mother, wanted to try to rebuild something. In the following weeks, family lawyers worked on authenticating Moses's will and determining inheritance values. Nora brought Shepard to the house to foster a civil environment among us, realizing that bitterness and hatred wouldn't benefit anyone. Although it would take time, we needed to work towards some semblance of normalcy. Peyton occasionally joined us, choosing silence over conversation. However, she mostly opted out of the entire process. Eventually, the lawyers informed us of the inheritance amounts each person would receive. To everyone's surprise, Shepard's share amounted to $75,000. Peyton was furious, finding it unjust that someone who had caused her years of unhappiness would suddenly be rewarded. "It's unfair," Peyton fumed. "He doesn't deserve a single cent after everything he's put us through." While I empathized with Peyton's frustration, it wasn't within her power to decide whether Shepard would receive the money or not. Nora and I seemed indifferent to the findings, eager to conclude the process and return to our normal lives. As Shepard adapted to his new lifestyle, there seemed to be a noticeable change in his demeanor. He underwent a significant transformation from a shy, timid, and remorseful individual to someone slightly arrogant and cocky, particularly upon learning that he would receive precisely what he came for. I observed this change in behavior but chose not to address it, attributing it to the drugs he was using. Witnessing a once respectable man deteriorate in such a manner was disheartening, and I struggled to comprehend it. As more weeks passed, a friend informed me that Shepard's inheritance money was ready for collection. He remained unaware of this, and I felt compelled to share this information with Nora in advance. Despite how difficult it was to consider giving a significant amount of money to an addict, I knew I had to do it myself. "Nora, are you sure I can handle this?" I asked, my voice trembling. My mother-in-law placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Hannah, I understand how hard this is for you. This is an incredibly difficult situation, especially when it involves your child, but you're stronger than you realize. Sometimes, as mothers, we have to take on the hardest tasks, even when they feel impossible. You've been holding on for so long, but I know you can do this. And remember, you're not alone. I'm here for you, every step of the way. If you need support, I'll be right here," she concluded. Her words gave me a sliver of confidence. Taking a deep breath, I accepted the responsibility. Before handing the money to Shepard, I gave myself a moment to gather my thoughts and prepare for whatever outcome awaited. Ironically, I sought solace in the attic, where remnants of my old life were stored. Retaining items from the past, once filled with pain, now served as reminders of my journey. The attic became a perfect place for me to reflect, surrounded by the dusty plastic tea set, acquired during a time when proper dishes and cutlery were unaffordable. I recalled the half-dead heater, with a mind of its own, often deciding when it wanted to work. It left Peyton and me huddled together for warmth that was never quite enough. I gazed at Shepard's old chest, filled with what I assumed were ancient work documents. The fear of uncovering how much money had been drained from our household to support his more important lifestyle kept me from ever opening it. However, on the day I was slated to hand him the money, a newfound resolve overcame my apprehension. Determined to uncover the truth, I broke open the now worn-out chest. Inside, I found an abundance of bank statements and checkbooks, meticulously detailing the substantial amount of money Shepard had squandered. As I perused the bank statements, identifying the account recipient as a certain Phoebe, an unfamiliar name, I delved deeper into the mystery. Buried within the chest was a handwritten letter that sent my heart plummeting. The letter, addressed to Shepard, exposed a clandestine affair. It expressed Phoebe's frustration with Shepard's reluctance to leave his family as promised. She threatened to involve someone named Otis, to whom Shepard owed a considerable sum for the drugs they consumed together. The letter gave him 24 hours to confess to his family, or Phoebe would take drastic measures, revealing their affair and his extravagant gifts to her. Reading this revelation left me in shock. Shepard had been having an affair before his departure, and he had used the money on his mistress. The sheer betrayal overwhelmed me, making me physically sick. This man chose to put his self-indulgent lifestyle above all else, leaving his wife and child at home to suffer. It was both unforgivable and repulsive. The letter laid bare his shameful behavior, pure selfishness. The rage and bitterness that had been festering within me reached a boiling point. At this juncture, I moved on autopilot, gathering everything from the chest and storming toward the dingy motel where Shepard was residing. I burst into the room, only to find Shepard with drugs scattered on the bed. "You're completely unbelievable. You're doing drugs just as I was about to give you the money," I exclaimed, unable to hide my disgust. "What, you have the money? That's great. Give it to me," he retorted, his demeanor both pathetic and sickening. I stared at him, my anger boiling over. "Do you even hear yourself, Shepard? You're sitting here surrounded by this mess, and all you can think about is money?" "Yeah, well, I don't care. Give me the money, Hannah," he added impatiently. Ignoring his demand, I flung the papers toward him, while tightly gripping the letter I had recently discovered. As he sifted through the bank statements he had conveniently hidden from me, I began reading the letter aloud. He froze, looking even more sickly and pale than before, now resembling a scared little puppy. "Did you get this letter on April 11th, right before you left?" I demanded, cutting off any attempts at explanation. I'm gonna explain," he stammered. "No, Shepard, you can't explain. The time for explaining is over. You're 3 years too late," I declared coldly. I was sick, Hannah. I still am sick, as you can see, he tried to reason. Stop with the excuses, Shepard. Do you think I wasn't tired? Do you think I didn't seek relief wherever I could find it? We all make choices. You're a grown man, damn it. You left us because you were having an affair, I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. It wasn't like that, he insisted weakly. Then what was it like? I demanded. I never loved you. I never wanted that life. I never wanted to be with you. I just got with you and had the kids so that Mom and Dad could get off my back. I never wanted responsibility. And frankly, I don't care enough to rekindle or mend anything between us. Not you, not Peyton, and not even my mother. I know it sounds awful to say, but it's the truth. Take it or leave it. Now give me my money, he demanded, his words cutting deeper than I thought possible. His lack of surprise at my harsh words only confirmed my long-standing view of him as the evil villain. As I looked at him now, he resembled some demon from a comic book, disgusting in every way. Hannah, I couldn't care less about your opinion of me. Just hand over my money, he uttered again. Ignoring his words, I asked, do Phoebe and Otis have an influence over you? He hesitated, confirming my suspicions. Watching his reaction, I added, you've managed to slip out of their grasp and run off with a new crowd. But being the disaster you are, you've also ruined those relationships. He gave a brief nod. Let me make this clear, I continued. You're leaving this place immediately without the money. You won't receive a single cent of the inheritance. Consider it reparations for Peyton and me. You owe us that much. Concerned about Otis? Not my problem. You should have considered the consequences before getting involved in this mess. And what if I refuse? He asked, his voice laced with false defiance. Well, someone with a substantial following on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube might just happen to leak some very private information about you. The kind that could reach anyone, including individuals named Otis and Phoebe. Furthermore, someone else with a highly successful blog and website could write an article exposing you to anyone with an internet connection, I replied firmly. All right, I get it. Loud and clear, he said, his bravado fading away. You've got 24 hours to gather your belongings and leave. Leave this city, leave this state. Your presence is no longer welcome here. There's no need for farewells. I'll inform Nora and Peyton about everything. Their hearts have suffered enough, and it's truly a shame, I added, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. I don't even know what to say, my ex-husband replied. How about ciao and good luck? Let's hope your drug associates don't treat you too harshly, though. Upon reflection, I find myself indifferent to whatever they do to you. You've been dead to me for the past 3 years, I concluded. He departed from town the next day, and thankfully, none of us have encountered him since. I find solace in the fact that all of us now have closure regarding Shepard's whereabouts and the reasons behind his departure.